What's up, everyone? Once, years ago, I had an opportunity on a plane flight to sit next to a 90-year-old woman named Emma who was taking her first plane flight. Now, this was incredible. She was 90 years old. She lived her entire life and never flew. And I had the blessing of getting to sit next to her. And when we talked, all I did was listen. I wanted to learn about her. I wanted to learn from her. But one of the most powerful lessons that she gave me that day was this. She said, people never really look up anymore. People just don't look up. She said, remember to always look up. And I love that advice. And I started to look up at the stars more. And when I did, I had a moment that really was very profound for me. See, I was looking at the star constellation Orion, and the brightest star in that constellation, Orion, is a star called Rigel. And then it hit me that if we were to travel to Rigel and be on any one of its planets, we wouldn't actually be able to even see the constellation Orion. From Rigel, Orion doesn't exist. And then I started to think about the myriad of constellations that our own star might be in. And the bigger my thoughts became, the smaller my own issues became. This is a truth that echoes through you, through me, through all of us. When we change the vantage point of our issues change. We often get angry, super angry, when we are convinced that whatever our perspective is, it is the definitive perspective of what's going on. But I have taught through the years what I call one-word anger management, and that is this, the word maybe. In other words, when we're heated, when we're in the midst of our angriest moments, we're that way because we are certain that whatever wrongs we experienced were whatever they were. But when we infuse the word maybe, what it does is instantly allows us to step away from our fight or flight defense part of our brain and move into our higher level thinking, even if it's momentarily. But what happens is this: instead of us becoming so enraged in our certainty, we infuse that maybe. Maybe there's something more. Maybe there's a different perspective to be had than the one we're currently in. Maybe. So try that. The next time you're angry, infuse that word, maybe. And let's tie that back into this star, Rigel, and knowing that from Rigel, Orion doesn't exist. Think about how your problems might look from a different perspective. Maybe you're convinced that what others say and do, they do intentionally. And yet you know that there have been times in your own life when you have hurt others and it was unintentional. So why is it that every time you're hurt, it was because someone was malicious or intentional? Why is it not that we step aside and switch the vantage point and say, wait a minute, maybe it was unintentional. Maybe the people who hurt us did so because they were struggling. You see, the more we step back and have a bigger experience of life and do what Emma taught me, take the time to look up, we can radically shift the way we experience any given moment. And that's really the whole point of personal growth, to recognize that we're human, our vantage point is limited, but our imagination, that's unlimited. Our ability to imagine ourselves outside of ourselves, that's a gift of consciousness. And if we can utilize that gift, I believe, because I've watched it in others, and I've certainly lived it myself, that we can transform anything that we're experiencing. Because ultimately, it's about how we tell ourselves whatever's happening. So we experience something and we think it's awful, it's terrible, it shouldn't be happening, and we get angry. Or we experience that very same thing and we say, this is an adventure. Now watch me use everything I've ever learned to handle this adventure in the best possible way. When it comes to personal growth, the journey is endless. We'll always have more to learn about ourselves. My hope for you is that you take the time to look up. And beyond looking up, use what you learn when you look up. Change the vantage point of whatever you're telling yourself, whatever the issues are, whatever's angering you in this moment or in future moments. Take the time to really shift your perspective. When we can shift our perspective from what we're experiencing in the moment to even something as straightforward as visualizing our future selves. And when we visualize our future selves, maybe we're 10, 20, 30 years older than we are now. And we look back on this moment. How might we handle this situation? Look, the reality is, you know, as well as I do, that when we're caught up in the heat of our anger and our certainty, this is the way things are, we get really fired up. We make impulsive decisions that we later regret the consequences of. But if we can step back, starting with taking the time to look up and step back and take a different perspective to what we're experiencing, it can radically shift the way we respond to anything we experience. Personal growth is a journey. It takes discipline. It takes effort. We master what we practice, and if we practice being impulsive, we'll always be impulsive. But if we practice having the self-discipline to take the time to look inward, to take the time to look up, to expand our perspective, then our personal growth deepens in ways that are ineffable, beyond anything we can describe. More than anything, as always, I wish you much peace.